got Roach Sadiri for Global Business Update. Roach, it's great to have you.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to all our viewers. So much going on. We start in China. China's factory activity continues to weaken. This is the fourth month in a row that we've seen the manufacturing purchasing managers index under 50. If you are under 50, you are contracting. If you are over 50, you are expanding. Basically, the Bureau of Statistics, and this happens everywhere across the world, goes around to manufacturers and asks them, how are your new orders? How are your employment rates? How is your inventory? How is this? How is that? They tick certain boxes and they basically ask questions. China's property sector continues to weigh on the purchasing manufacturers index. You can see that it's at 49.2, December was 49. So again, 4 months in a row in contraction territory. Fourth consecutive month again of contraction. The non-manufacturing PMI, 50.7, that is above. It was because of the services industry that was able to keep that afloat, but only just barely. So the struggles in the second largest economy in the world continue. We move on from there to, I just have to put up this GDP equation just to remind people, how this works. So, because I'm going to look at Saudi Arabia's GDP in just a moment. But so you've got your consumption, your investment spending, government spending, exports and imports. Saudi Arabia on their statistics, when they release their reports, they call this government activities, but that's just government spending. So 2023 economy, this was a flash estimate that just came out not too long ago. Annual GDP in real terms contracted by 0.9%. Oil GDP, that contracted by 9.2. Non-oil, they call it oil activities, but same thing. Non-oil GDP plus up 4.1. Government activities, government spending 2.1. Now, remember, we saw oil weakness in the last quarter of 2023, and that fed into Saudi Arabia's weakness. For the fourth quarter, because we looked at annual, fourth quarter contracting by 3.7%, oil GDP 16.4%, especially we saw oil prices falling in that last quarter of the year. 16.4%, non-oil plus 4, government activities plus 3. There was an announcement made by Saudi Aramco yesterday, and this was very interesting. It says Saudi Aramco announces that it has received a directive from the Ministry of Energy to maintain its MSC, which is the maximum sustainable capacity, at 12 million barrels per day, and not to continue increasing it to 13 million. So they're trying to essentially set a floor for prices. You've seen oil prices climb on the back of what's been going on in the Red Sea, the U.S., back and forth between the U.S. and its allies, and what's been going on with the Houthi rebels and so on and so forth. But still, the supply side, because there's always two sides to these conversations. The supply side conversation on oil is that you've seen the U.S. pumping record amounts of oil. I think the U.S. now is the top oil producer in the world. Of course, you've heard the Dangote refinery getting oil, West Texas Intermediate, from the U.S. because the Dangote refinery is equipped to take crude from different grades across the world and so on and so forth. United States is now the largest LNG producer, surpassing Qatar and Australia. So there's a supply side which is moderating prices. So what they're doing now is to say, okay, listen, don't add more supply to the market. Stick to 12 million barrels a day, and that essentially simple demand and supply. If you keep supply at a lower point, you will essentially support the existing prices that are there. In fact, it's even an effort to try to raise prices, but that is countered by supplies. So that's Saudi Arabia. We now move on to earnings. We talked about the lots of earnings that were going to be released this week. Alphabet released their results after the bell, but the stock fell despite decent results that you're seeing here. So revenues, $86.3 billion. Estimates were for 85. They beat the estimates, but look at their ad revenue, and this is the reason why the stock price fell. Ad revenue came in at 65.5 billion, but Wall Street was expecting 65.9. Now, Google Cloud coming in at 9.9. Google has been trying to catch up with Microsoft, Azure, and Amazon as well. Net income coming in 52% higher. But the thing to stick with on Alphabet is that Google released Gemini, their AI program. They've been spending a lot of money on trying to catch up with Microsoft as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. And so Wall Street's worry is that, listen, your bread and butter is ads through Google search. If your ad revenues are not, cash flows from your ad revenues are being eaten up by the investment that you're putting in artificial intelligence, then we worry about the long term, not only you being able to catch up with Microsoft and the rest, but you also being able to sustain those cash flows over a period of time. time. So that's the reason why the stock fell. We move to Microsoft. Microsoft, more diversified. You've seen what they've been going on with Microsoft Copilot AI that was introduced as part of 365. They didn't actually tell us how much was spent. Also, the significant spending on ChatGPT and so on and so forth. So revenues coming in 62 billion, estimates of 62.1, handily beating that. Intelligent cloud revenue that includes Azure, 25 billion, 20% growth, net income 30% growth. The only reason why Microsoft shares fell, even despite these good earnings, and by the way, Microsoft now surpassing Apple as the most capitalized, the world's most valuable company at over 3 trillion. It took the mantle from Apple last month, is because their guidance for the third quarter was about $60 billion for revenue. Wall Street was expecting about 61. So there was just a slight worry there in terms of the guidance that they were giving. But by and large, Microsoft, I think for a fifth quarter in a row now, they've done particularly well in terms of their earnings. Tesla, Elon Musk, a judge in Delaware, has revoked his compensation pay package for Tesla, which was at $55 billion. Essentially, this is, you just gotta love the United States. Shareholders came forward and said, hey, this package is too much. Why is he getting paid $55 billion for roughly $56 billion in compensation? So he went to court. This was like, the petition was put forward, I think 3-4 years ago. And a judge in Delaware said, yeah, you can't prove that this compensation fairly reflects what you have brought to the company in terms of share price appreciation and Tesla's production target. So, and Musk, of course, as is typical, he went on Twitter and said nobody should ever go and set up a company in Delaware. He started talking about illegal immigration and things like that. But I think he's going to appeal it. Now, what's the impact of this? If you lop off this 56 billion from Musk's net worth, he falls, I think, to second or third place in terms of the world's richest. So Bernard Arnault of LVMH or whatever, he's probably going to be the wealthiest person in the world. But there is, of course, this now creates an issue with the board. The board now has to follow up on this matter from the court. But I think he's going to appeal it. So we move from Elon Musk to Nigeria, the front page of today's This Day Nigeria newspaper of record. The autonomous foreign exchange market allowed to weaken to 1,482. Parallel market about 1,430. This is price discovery. This is the central bank slowly letting go of the handbrake and not permitting funds to defending a currency that they don't have the reserves to defend. There is, again, as I said, with the push-pull, the arguments with oil prices, and now for the currency on Nigeria's side. In fact, there was a billionaire that came out in Egypt. I didn't add this story, but I can't remember his name. He actually came out saying that Egypt should devalue their currency quickly in order to fall in line with the parallel market rate. If you achieve exchange rate unification, of course, there's a supply side, which we talked about yesterday with the Agora report. You can essentially eliminate the parallel market if you have the supplies to back up the NAFEM, because now you have a unified exchange rate, you've got a transparent exchange rate. This is a good move on behalf of the CBN. But let me talk about the second side that people keep forgetting, which is the amount of money spent defending the currency. We had the senior partner from PwC Nigeria to talk about their new report, and we touched on the exchange rate. Here's what he said. Floating around from 2019, quoting the former CBN governor who was talking about at the time why it's not a good idea to float the currency. But there's a headline from the Tribune on the other side. Yeah, there it is. CBN spends 11.4 billion in 7 months to defend the Naira. We have to take two sides of this argument, do we not? What do you say on that?
I think we should all take a step back and think about the term defend the Naira.
Right.
It's an anomaly, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you think about liberalizing or floating, the one thing that we're clear about that is a bad idea is defending the Naira.
Right.
The idea that you have to defend this Naira is clearly a bad idea. We've tried it for years, and how has it helped us? So we do believe that the decision to liberalize the FX market is a step in the right direction, right? Defending the Naira was significantly depleting our FX reserves, as you well know, and that was no longer sustainable.
All right, well, and that's our update for today.
Well,
With due respect, that's a nuanced argument. Very nuanced.
all right.
Let's
Nuanced
move on.
argument, how?
Yeah.
All right, we
That's a
cannot have
nuanced
that
argument.
conversation.
Okay, well,
this
okay, no
morning.
problem.
We'll take it further,
Very
but thank you so
nuanced
much.
Men
Rufus.
lie, women lie, numbers don't. Jay-Z.
All right.
All right, thank you so much.
All right,
That's
thank
a
you.
very
You left,
nuanced
who was it? Who was it you were quoting?
There was Jay-Z. That was at the Grammys when he won
the
it.
lives of the,
Thank
at
you
the
so
expense
much,
of depleting the
Rufus.
lives of the people. Neoclassical
We don't have
economics
enough
never.
time to
We
take
wish.
this
There's always
conversation
tomorrow.
further, but
Yeah,
there's always
there's always
tomorrow. We will definitely talk about this tomorrow.